What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Cinema Trip Retro Reviews. I am Wyatt, and today in the show, I'm going to be talking about The French Connection. If you haven't already, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Cinema Trip Reviews. Also, drop in, leave us a good review wherever you get your podcast. Really helps get the show out there to a lot more people, and I really appreciate it. So, of course, today I'm talking about none other than the all-time classic, The French Connection. This movie is directed by William Friedkin, known for The Exorcist fame. But even before The Exorcist, he released this movie to critical acclaim. It blew everybody's socks off, won a bunch of different Academy Awards for Best Director and everything, Best Picture. And, Gene Hackman won an award for Best Actor in the movie as well. It does star Gene Hackman, the late, great Gene Hackman. Of course, I'm not going to get into that whole story. It is incredibly tragic, but I mean, he's left a huge legacy of impressive work. I mean, he's going down as one of the all-time great actors that's ever done it, and I've only seen a handful of his movies. I actually really need to go back and watch a lot of the stuff that he's really known for. And that was part of the reason I wanted to do this review as well, because even though this movie is an all-time classic, I've never seen the movie. This is the first time watch for me, so I had to go and check it out and give my thoughts on the channel and everything. Before I get into the actual movie, like I mentioned, does star Gene Hackman as Popeye Doyle. Such a crazy name for a detective in the movie, Popeye Doyle. But you also have Roy Scheider here, Chief Brody himself from Jaws. He plays his partner in the movie. He actually went on a couple years after this to be in Sorcerer, another movie directed by William Friedkin. I hear that movie is absolutely amazing. It's fantastic. That's another one I need to go and check out, maybe do a review on the channel at some point. I know there's a Criterion collection version of it. I need to go out and check that one out and purchase that to add to the collection. But I'm not talking about Sorcerer today. I'm talking about The French Connection. And anytime I go to review or watch a movie like this that has so much critical acclaim behind it, it gets you hype, and I'm always afraid that it's not going to live up to the hype when I'm watching one of these types of movies. But after watching this, boy, it really lives up to the hype. I mean, everything about it is really what I love about, 1970s cinema. I mean, it's just that hard-nosed, gritty, detective type movie. And I mean, it's just the way that it's shot as well. As far as a directing standpoint, tried to go about this as far as like a documentary type feel to it. And I do get that kind of feeling at certain points of the movie. But the reason he did that is because this movie is based off of a book, which is based off of a true story. It was written by the actual detective that was involved with the bust that, happens within the book and within the movie. It was part of one of the biggest, narcotics busts in history. I'm not sure if it's still up there as of today as one of the biggest busts, but at that time, it was one of the biggest busts in history. And that's why I ended up writing the book and making the movie about it and everything. And I mean, William Friedkin, from my understanding, he didn't even read the book fully. He wasn't super interested in it. He was just more interested in the story, not the book itself. And he really worked closely with the original, detective and his partner who went through everything. And they were on set pretty much daily to make sure that everything was going smoothly and that everything was being portrayed as accurately as possible. And watching the movie, you really get a sense that a lot of this is pretty accurate. I mean, I'm not sure how accurate everything is down to a T as far as like the story standpoint, because obviously I didn't read the book or anything. And I feel like a lot of the procedure in this does feel pretty authentic, because there's a lot of different scenes of them just following people around or staking people out in their cars, just sitting there trying to find information, trying to find who this one person's connected to or where they're going. It's all very fascinating. It all plays out pretty smoothly, because I mean, I've talked about this in other retro reviews as well, because a lot of these, not just cop movies but 70s movies in general, they're very slow pace, and it takes a while for them to get going. And you kind of have to figure it out. With it gives you all the pieces to kind of figure out the puzzle along with the detectives and everything. And I don't think this movie is very slow by any means. I mean, maybe to certain people, but I found it completely entertaining just because it's not completely serious and hard-nosed the whole time. The whole movie, it feels very natural between Popeye Doyle, played by Gene Hackman, and Roy Scheider's character, who is his partner in the movie. It seems like they just have a very natural relationship, just being, you could tell they've been partners for a while. And there's a lot of humor kind of spread out through the whole movie. And it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel forced by any means, like, oh, here's a punchline or here's a brief like comedic relief type moment. All the comedy in the movie kind of feels very natural, like, these guys just kind of ribbing on each other, or just making a smart ass comment here and there. And I was very surprised on how humorous the movie was throughout the whole thing, really. just dealing with, just the smart ass comments between the two partners or with their chief or with anybody else they're interacting with. There's a lot of humor spread out throughout the movie, and I think that really helps it for the most part, because I feel like if it was very down and gritty and hard nosed and just, very serious the whole time, I'm not sure it would have worked nearly as well, because I think the comedy is really what kind of alleviates a lot of the stuff that you're going through the different, them staking out, sitting in the car outside of a building waiting for someone to come out, or certain long extended scenes of them just following certain people around on the street level or in their cars or something. There's a lot of different drawn out scenes of them just sitting there waiting or following someone down into a subway or down the street. And to me, it doesn't really lose momentum. I mean, I think I can see why some people would think it would lose momentum here and there because there are long drawn out scenes. But to me, I'm in it just to find and figure out what happens next. I'm down with it. I feel like I'm on the case with these two detectives, staking out these guys with them. And it really makes you think, like, what it would have been like to be a detective or a cop back in the 70s in New York. It just compared to today, we have, cell phones and social media and everything. I feel like it's a lot easier now to pass the time by if you're staking out somebody, or if you're following somebody, or if you're just waiting outside for hours and hours for somebody to come out of a building. Whereas like back in the 70s, you didn't really have anything to do other than just kind of sit and twiddle your thumbs, maybe listen to the radio, read the newspaper if it's light out. Otherwise, you're bored as shit waiting for your target to come out or something like that. Very interesting to see just the procedures for the cops in the 70s, and you try to compare it to like what it would be like now. But that's another thing I love about not just this movie, but like 70s filmmaking in general, is just the authenticity of it, how authentic everything feels, especially towards the beginning of this movie where you're driving around, you're seeing a lot of cinematic shots of New York just from car windows and stuff. It puts you in that time period of 70s New York. And I would have just loved to be able to go back and see what it was like in the 70s in New York City. Just like just like Times Square, the old signs and billboards and everything, and just driving down these different alleyways and everything. It's all just like, I love the look and the aesthetic of, 70s, not just New York, but 70s movies in general, like in different cities and all that. Just even like you go watch Chinatown, just like 70s LA. I just love the aesthetic of just that old gritty filmmaking aspect. And that's part of the charm of why I love going back and looking at these old like 70s or 60s movies, just because I love that aesthetic, and I love the slow burn of all these old school movies and everything. And that's why I love doing these retro reviews. But before I get into the actual plot, I mean, I did love this movie. I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, the actual directing of it by William Friedkin is fantastic. I know he went for more of a documentary type feel. There's certain elements that I do feel like that in the movie. It feels kind of documentary, but otherwise it feels like a very old school 70s movie that's being shot. Camera is across the street, and there's slow zoom ins, or you're slow zooming out from somewhere. And certain shots of like the trains that are going above the traffic and everything. I mean, of course, this movie is well known for, the chase that happens towards the end of the movie with Gene Hackman driving this car, chasing down this train until it makes it stop, because there's an assassin on the train that tried to kill Popeye Doyle and everything. He's chasing him down in this car, weaving in and out of traffic, smashing into other cars, sliding into buildings, chasing down this train until it stops. And it's one of the most famous scenes, not just in this movie, but in film history, I feel, at this point. I have seen, even though I haven't seen the movie, I've seen certain clips and certain elements of this movie at certain points. And I know the story that they famously didn't have any permits to shoot this chase whatsoever. They had some off-duty cops to kind of help block off roads here and there, but they didn't have any permits from New York to go out and shoot this huge car chase or anything like that. In fact, there's actual real accidents that occur in while filming this that are in the movie that you can easily see. There's certain car accidents that happen that weren't really supposed to be in there. One of the many highlights of the movie itself, other than just being, it seems like an authentic, real police procedural type thing. Like I mentioned, you follow Popeye Doyle, played by Gene Hackman, who's just this hard-nosed cop who, I mean, he is kind of by the book, but he's kind of a bully in his own way. I mean, you see it very early on in the movie when you first interact with Popeye Doyle and his partner, played by Roy Scheider. Gene Hackman's dressed up as Santa Claus outside, because this movie is set during Christmas time, as you come to find out. At least parts of it are. Gene Hackman's dressed up as Santa Claus out there ringing the bell, talking to kids and stuff. And Roy Scheider's his partner. He's the one that's on lookout. He's the one that's going in and trying to find their target and all that. And you get to see that first little bust that they have at the beginning of the movie, and then kind of them playing good cop, bad cop. Roy Scheider's playing the good cop, and Gene Hackman's just playing that asshole, just drilling this dude into the wall, trying to find answers, trying to make him admit to what's happening and everything. That's where you really get to see kind of the character of Popeye Doyle and how he is. He doesn't really give a fuck about anything other than just cracking the case. I mean, he does seem like a good guy to, the people he works with his partner and everything. I love that relationship between him and Roy Scheider in the movie. Just that very like kind of buddy type aspect. You're able to kind of bust each other's balls and have fun. I mean, you have to at that point in time, and in the 70s New York and everything. As a cop, you're sitting all night in a car just staking out somebody. You don't have really anything to do but talk to the other person, or like I mentioned, listen to the radio or whatever. So you kind of have to get along with the person you're partnered with, and you really get a sense that they've been partners for a while. They have that camaraderie, they have that bond between them that I really enjoyed throughout the whole movie. Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider bouncing off of each other. It's fantastic. You really get to see what kind of cops both people are. Because I mean, Roy Scheider, he can be a hard ass at certain points, but he's nowhere near what Gene Hackman is in this movie. He's a little bit more lenient. He's a little bit more friendly to certain people, and especially people he's interrogating. Where Popeye Doyle, Gene Hackman's character, he's very blunt. He's very upfront with it. He's not really trying to hide anything. He's just being an asshole most of the time, and he's going to do anything that he can to get down to the bottom of cracking this case, or busting some heads or busting these guys that they're chasing after. The main plot of the movie really kicks off because after you have that initial bust at the beginning, Gene Hackman ends up convincing his partner Roy Scheider to go to the bar with him, and they go out to the club, have a couple drinks, but they notice a guy they haven't really noticed before, and they're hanging around with some other drug dealers or gang members that have been arrested before that they recognize, and they're like, wait a minute, who's this guy going around throwing money around, buying big dinners, hanging around these women? We don't recognize this guy. Let's follow him around. And that's really where the plot starts picking up. And they follow him around literally all night. I mean, Roy Schneider just wants to fucking go home to his family or whatever, but and they find out that he just like owns this little shop, and he has a wife and everything, and he doesn't seem like a bigwig or anything like that. He doesn't seem like a dude that has a lot of money. So they're like, wait a minute, something's not right here. We got to figure out what's going on here. And as they go about the whole thing, they try to get the wiretaps. They start following this guy even more. They start seeing that he is in bed with a lot of these other guys that they do know, but there is a type of a connection here that they haven't found yet. And as you come to find going throughout the movie, it's a French connection. And that's literally why the movie's titled French Connection, is because you have these guys in France. Here and there, you're bouncing back from New York to France, and you're dealing with some of these guys. And if you watch this movie on Amazon like I did, there's certain bits in this movie where they're speaking all in French, but there's no subtitles. So for like the first like 20 minutes or so, I'm like, okay, I have no idea what these people are saying, but I'm kind of picking up what's going on with context clues. But with Amazon, you actually have to go turn the subtitles on to see what they're saying in French. And you have to keep the subtitles on the whole movie. They don't just show you the French stuff. You have to have the actual subtitles on for the whole movie to see what they're saying. So I actually had to rewind it to go back and see what I missed because I didn't have the subtitles on originally. But these French guys got a ton of like pure heroin that they're trying to push into the US, push into New York to sell and make a huge killing off of it. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars here. But the French guys enlist the help of a French actor who's going to help them out. He doesn't really seem like he knows what's going on as far as the drug stuff. He's just there to help his buddy out. So the French guys, this French actor, get this big ass like Cadillac. They get on a boat and they sail to New York to, start this deal, start the proceedings of this deal with the guy that Popeye Doyle and his partner have been trailing around. Because this guy that Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider are kind of following around, he's kind of the middleman. He's the one that's setting up the deal between, the big guys in New York and the French guys, the French connects. So the whole movie, you are following Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider, following this guy around, finding out little bits of information here and there that leads to the greater scheme, that leads to, the big guys in New York that they know about, and lead to the French guys, the French connections that they don't really know about, that they do come to find out as everything's unfolding throughout this movie. And since it is a 70s gritty cop type movie, you do have long drawn out scenes, like I mentioned, of them staking out certain buildings or following people around, on the streets. And it's also fascinating because you can really see how authentic it may be at certain times, because you have 4 or 5 different detectives that are waiting at certain spots. As soon as they bring the target around one area, that next person follows them. So it's not the same person following that same target the whole time, so it doesn't blow their cover. But as you come to find out, French guys they know a thing or two. They know what it's like to be followed or to be tailed by police. So at every little turn, it seems like the French connections have one up on the detectives. At every little opportunity, they end up losing them somehow. And there's one amazing scene where, Popeye Doyle, Gene Hackman, is following around the French guy for quite a while. He's tailing him himself, ends up going down to the subway, and you have that little standoff where they both get on the train. The French guy hops off. He hops off. They both hop back on, and they're kind of trying to fool each other. And of course, the French guy ends up one-upping Popeye Doyle, and he even gives him that little smart-ass wave as he's leaving the station after he tricks him. And I believe like Seinfeld parodied that at one point when Kramer is trying to escape the one bookie. I believe at the one point they kind of have that little interaction where they're trying to trick each other by jumping on and off the subway train. But it's all not just slow detective procedurals or everything. There's definitely certain action sequences in the movie. Like I mentioned, you have the all famous, car chase, the cars chasing the train and everything. That's one of the biggest, kind of set pieces of the movie, the one that's really the movie's known for, really. But you also have the sniper shootout. Once the French guys know that they're being tailed by Popeye Doyle, they have one of their guys go out to try to assassinate him and everything, kill him off, because they only need enough time for the deal to go down by that Friday. So they want to make sure that they kill off this cop before anybody else really gets assigned to the case to get put on it. They're already going to be gone. Popeye Doyle is just coming home, after a long day's work, and then a lady gets shot right beside him. You think a trained assassin, you see this guy take somebody out at the beginning of the movie. With a trained assassin, you think he would be a little bit more accurate. And that's really the start of this whole chase, where you get into the car chase and everything, which is fantastic. When it's all said and done, Popeye Doyle ends up shooting and killing the guy, which is like, I understand you're tired. You've been banged up by, running around and, being in these car accidents and whatever. The assassin just got in a huge train wreck, so he's banged up as well. I feel like there's definitely a way you could have got this guy alive. You didn't have to shoot and kill this guy. I mean, and that's kind of the point of the movie, is Popeye Doyle is going to do anything that he can to bring these guys to justice. And it doesn't matter what he has to do. Innocent people could get hurt, but he doesn't care as long as he gets his guy. So, I mean, I feel like Popeye could have easily shot this dude in the leg, took him in. They could have questioned him. They could have got to the bottom of this whole thing a lot sooner, maybe. But no, he shoots and kills this guy, and then they're on to the next one, trying to figure out how to bust these guys. And one of my favorite scenes of the movie isn't even the car chase. It's whenever Popeye Doyle and his partner go to this bar, and they start, shaking everybody down. Everybody's got drugs on them. Some people got guns. They have everybody up against the wall. Popeye's just being a straight asshole, just interrogating certain people, throwing them up against the wall, threatening violence against them and everything. And then he really starts, berating this one guy. He's like throwing him up against the wall. He's questioning him. He's emptying his pockets, and he's like, come on, I need to talk to you. He takes him to the bathroom, shoves him in there. And lo and behold, it's just another cop that's undercover that he's working with. And then they're all buddy. As soon as they get into the bathroom, he's trying to find out certain information. And of course, that's where you find out, there's not really much drugs going around as of right now, but there's supposed to be a huge deal that's happening shortly. I mean, they have to here soon. But I just love that whole thing where he's just being this hard ass asshole of a cop, this bully of a cop, just bullying everybody around. And then he just takes this dude into the bathroom, and then they're buddy, and they're just talking like they're friends and everything. And then as soon as he comes out of the bathroom, he's throwing him around again, treating him like he's one of these other guys out there, just because he's undercover. And I just thought it was super funny how everything kind of played out. And Popeye definitely has a certain sense of humor to him, along with Roy Scheider's character. But most of the time, he is just an asshole to everybody that he meets. You also have another very funny scene That's one of my favorite scenes as well, where Roy Scheider goes and tries to pick up Popeye out of his apartment because he ended up getting the approval for the wiretaps and, go around following these guys around. And Popeye ended up picking up this girl on his way home, and this girl ended up handcuffing him to his bed, and she's walking around naked in the apartment. It's just a lot of different comedic elements that are involved in the scene, where Roy Schneider's holding up the pair of panties. He's like, "Are these yours?" A lot of these like little comedic elements that are involved throughout the whole movie is what makes this movie so fantastic. On top of the police stuff, because I mean, there's just something about cop movies from the 70s I really enjoy. And that element about the movie is fantastic in its own right. But to add that little comedic elements to the movie itself, I think it makes it that much greater and that much better of a movie, because it feels authentic. It feels like these characters are real, like they've been working together for a long time. They know each other in and out. I don't know. It just feels very authentic and feels very natural as far as these characters go. Now, my only real problem with the movie is the very end. And I feel like that maybe some people's complain about it. To me, I love the movie entirely up until the very end. I was on board the whole time. I absolutely adored it. It was amazing. I actually can't wait to watch it again eventually. I just was not a fan of the ending, just because of how, and I mean, that's kind of how movies were in the 70s. They are not just the 70s, but even, leading up, the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. There was a lot of movies that kind of do end very abruptly and cut the credits, or just get wrapped up super fast, hit the credits. This is one of those movies, because as they go, they have the huge drug bust. They end up catching a lot of these guys, but the Frenchman ends up getting away into this warehouse, and Popeye Doyle goes in after him. And he's walking around, he's trying to find it. It's very atmospheric, very creepy, just this rundown old warehouse he's walking through, very quiet. There's no music playing. And he ends up almost shooting his partner, Roy Scheider, at one point, because he sneaks up on him. But as they're kind of maneuvering their way through the warehouse, they see somebody move, and he ends up turning around, and he fires like his whole gun into this guy. And it turns out he ends up shooting one of his other cops that he was working with. And he doesn't even have any remorse over killing this guy, even though this guy was a dickhead the whole movie to Popeye Doyle, because I guess Popeye was involved with another case that didn't go right, and the cop ended up getting killed, and this guy was holding a grudge against Popeye the whole time. So, I mean, he kind of deserved it for being an asshole, but at the end of the day, Popeye shouldn't have been just out here blasting anybody willy-nilly, even though it was an asshole guy. He kind of had it coming. But you can't be out here just shooting your fellow cops, But he had zero remorse for it, because he's like, we got to go find this guy still. And Roy Scheider's just kind of sitting there trying to process everything that just happened. And Gene Hackman's just moving on. Just Popeye's moving on to the next room. He sees a shadow. He walks in. You don't even see anything. You just see him walk into the room. You hear a gunshot, and then it just cuts. And then you get to see that every single person that they arrested in this bust end up either getting off free or getting a reduced sentence. And it just goes to show how corrupt the system was, or is really still to this day, how corrupt the system is. Either they're just paying cops or paying judges, or they know certain people in certain places that are able to get them reduced sentences or get them off scot-free. Even though you follow Gene Hackman and throughout this whole movie to bust everybody in this huge bust, and most of them, damn near all of them, end up getting off free or, getting a reduced sentence. And the Frenchman that he's going after damn near the whole movie doesn't even get caught. He gets off scot-free. They can't even find him at the end of the movie. And it just also happens so abruptly, man. Like it happens so quickly. Like he just walks in that room, you hear the gunshot, and then it just cuts to telling you, oh yeah, all these people end up getting free or reduced sentences. The Frenchman was never found. Popeye Doyle and his partner end up getting transferred to another precinct or another department. And it's not really a happy ending whatsoever. During the course of this whole movie, you're like, oh yeah, they're going to get these guys by the end of the movie. They're going to get their bust. It's going to end, be a happy ending. They're going to get the guys. They're going to get these drugs off the street and everything. But no, the Frenchman ends up getting away. I'm not sure entirely who Popeye Doyle shot at towards the end of the movie. If he shot anybody, he just walked in that room and just shoots. I'm not sure if he saw the guy or if he was just shooting in frustration. All of it is very ambiguous at the very end. And I mean, I do know there is a sequel, The French Connection 2. It's not directed by William Friedkin. There's another director that's involved. I've heard very mixed things on it. I heard Gene Hackman gives an outstanding performance in it. But I heard the movie is kind of lackluster compared to the first one. It doesn't live up to that first one. but it does have the same Frenchman in it. And apparently it does involve Popeye going to France and going to hunt this guy down. So I'm very intrigued about that movie. I'm definitely going to have to check it out. Maybe it'll be a Patreon review once I get that up and running, or maybe I'll pop that here on the channel. But I'm definitely want to check that out at some point, not only because it stars Gene Hackman, but it's a direct continuation from the end of this movie. It was all like, I don't want to say anticlimactic because there was a lot of cool shit that was happening at the end of the movie, but it all just ends so abruptly and ends just on a kind of a down note. There's like, oh, you thought he was going to catch this guy? Well, guess what? He got away. And all these guys they did catch, they're going to get off scot-free. And so all this detective work and everything that Popeye worked for this whole movie ends up just resulting in nothing really because everybody gets off scot-free, and even he and his partner get transferred to a different department. I'm not sure if they get demoted or anything, but I mean, Popeye's definitely in a lot of trouble. I mean, he was killing one of his own cops. So I mean, it's definitely ends on such a downer, man. And I just, as soon as the movie ended, I was like, damn, like, what the fuck? I feel cheated in a way. And I mean, I'm totally fine with movies just kind of ending on a down note or ending with where like the good guy doesn't win in the end. But like you really don't see it coming whatsoever. And it happens within like the last 30 seconds of the movie, man. Like it ends so abruptly. I just wasn't prepared for it. Maybe going back and rewatching it again, maybe I'll kind of find an appreciation for the ending. But like as it stands right now off of one watch, I am not a fan of the ending by any means. I'm saying that they had to catch the guy at the very end. I'm not disappointed with that. I'm just disappointed with how it ended so abruptly. There's really no explanation for it. It's just all just kind of shoved in your face within the last 20 seconds. I just wish there was more kind of a drawn out explanation for what happened at the very end here, instead of just all being summed up with like these little cards with, you know, subtext on them and everything. But I mean, other than the very ending where I just had an issue with, I thought the movie was fantastic nonetheless. I think it was an amazing movie all around. I think the directing of it was fantastic by William Friedkin, even though this dude's a madman and he's an asshole on all accounts from what I understand. I mean, RIP William Friedkin, but there's a lot of stories about William Friedkin out there, just him being an absolute asshole and a madman. But the dude knew how to direct a fucking movie. So I mean, I got to give him that, man. But I mean, from the directing standpoint, and the cinematography is absolutely amazing. It's exactly what you expect from like a 1970s cop movie, down to the acting, which is absolutely amazing with Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider. Even a lot of the other people in the movie itself, decent actors as well. And I do know that the actual cops that were involved with the real story are in the movie as well. I believe one of them plays the police chief that they interact with. So they actually have some of the people that were involved with the real story in the movie as well, other than just consulting on the movie. The cinematography, the directing aspect, the acting in it, even the music is amazing in the movie. The music is very kind of dark and ominous, gets that the tension building in certain scenes. Like I mentioned towards the beginning of the review, this movie is considered like one of the all-time greats, you know, one of the greatest movies of all time for a reason. And, you know, after watching it, I can easily see why, you know, except with the exception of the ending, you know, and that's the very, very minor exception, because I was locked in the whole time. I absolutely love this movie, you know, top to bottom. I just loved everything about it, and I actually can't wait to watch it again. For those who have seen the movie, let me know what you thought about it in the comments below, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have a lot of opinions about this movie, and I would love to hear them. Just because this is my first time watching it, and just after watching movies like this, I want to kick myself for not watching it sooner. And I feel like that after watching a lot of these movies I do on retro reviews, like, man, how have I not seen this sooner? Like I've heard about it all these years, but for some reason I just never watched it up until now. And after watching it, you know, I have such a better appreciation for it, you know, especially the movie itself as a whole, and also for William Friedkin as a director, and also Gene Hackman as an actor. And also I'm throwing Roy Scheider in there as well, because I haven't seen Roy Scheider in too many things other than Jaws, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. He's Chief Brody to me. So anytime I see him, I was like, that's fucking Chief Brody. But he was amazing in this movie as well. And I think he deserves his flowers too. But there's just so much to love about this movie. Just from an acting standpoint, and just a filmmaking standpoint and a storytelling standpoint. But enough of me kind of, you know, gushing about this movie and how much I love it. It's time to get down to the nitty gritty. It's time to give the buy it, rent it, or miss it portion of this review, as I do in all my reviews, not just the retro reviews. Out of a buy it, rent it, or miss it for the French Connection, this is a buy it. This is one you got to add to the collection. I immediately went on Amazon and eBay after watching the movie to see if I can get a copy of it, and it seems like it's due for a re-release here soon because I wasn't able to find too many copies of this one out there on Blu-ray or 4K or anything like that. So they're due for a re-release soon, or else I'm gonna have to find a little more expensive copy of it on eBay somewhere to get, because I definitely want to add this one to my collection. I think the movie as a whole is phenomenal. There's a reason that it won so many Academy Awards when it came out, and there's a reason that it's considered one of the greatest movies of all time. But that's my review for the French Connection. If you have seen the movie, let me know what you thought about it in the comments below, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. Do you rate it as one of the greatest movies of all time? If you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out immediately and come back and leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about it in the video here. So that is the show for this week. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Cinema Trip Reviews. Also, drop in and leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. Really helps us get the show out there to a lot more people, and I really appreciate it. And I'll see everybody next week.